Today's topic is unconditional positive regard. It's a really important concept when receiving and giving help. It's a concept that actually comes from psychology that refers to the complete acceptance and support of a person regardless of what they say or do. It is characterized by an attitude of love and acceptance, trying to not have any judgment or criticism. Sometimes that can actually be really hard to do. So what does this mean? It means that warm feeling you get when someone really cares about you, is really open to you, and they're not withdrawn. And even if that person makes mistakes, or even if you're making mistakes, you feel like that person's still with you and still cares and still is providing that open response and warmth. This concept was popularized by Carl Rogers, the psychologist who really thought about humans and their experiences. He's an American psychologist, well known especially for his human-centered psychotherapy. It's important in therapeutic settings to have this kind of regard because it provides acceptance and it fosters a space for people to feel like they can make mistakes and still keep talking and sharing. Where I found it really helpful is in like peer support or non-clinical settings, because that's my background in working with people, as a way of supporting and accepting others.
Jules, thanks for bringing this up. It's a super important topic, and I think everyone needs to know about this. I didn't learn about Carl Rogers and Unconditional Positive Regard until I took a coaching training program just a couple of years ago. I took psychology in college. I had some exposure to it in high school. I even went through peer support training and crisis counseling training, and this didn't come up, and it really surprised me when I found out about it because it really does feel like it's super important. I just love the simplicity of the algorithm of unconditional positive regard. You just always accept the person, whatever they say, whatever they do. How can you just be in complete acceptance and treat them in a positive, non-judgmental way? If you're trying to have value judgments about whether or not they're doing something good or bad, do they even have the same values as you? It just creates complexity. And any judgment that you have in an interaction with someone is going to create distance. They're going to either shut down or they're going to get defensive. I've had a lot of people who have been supporters in my life who didn't necessarily know how to do this. We can pick up on those things. If someone is pulling away from us or is thinking that what we're saying or doing is not right in their mind, then it completely changes the relationship at that point. One important distinction I want to make here is that this unconditional acceptance doesn't mean approval. Just because you accept that something is happening doesn't mean you approve it. I accept that the Holocaust happened. I don't approve of it, but that doesn't mean I'm denying that it happened. And there's a lot of bad things in the world that I want to accept that they're happening, but that doesn't mean I approve of it. When you are having an interaction with someone and maybe they say something, you want to accept that, you want to validate what they said, reflect it back to them, but you can have boundaries too. You can say that behavior was unacceptable. You don't have to have unconditional positive regard for them coming at you, judging you, yelling at you, being angry at you. You can say, that hurt me. You're disrespecting me and I don't appreciate that. And if you keep doing that, I'm going to have to end this interaction. You don't have to take whatever this person is saying.
I really appreciate you mentioning that, Dave, and I think that's the parallel to the way you would offer that to somebody. And that's something I've definitely experienced working in community and youth crisis mental health teams or working with families and talking about some pretty serious stuff, right? So you're having that positive regard, but certainly when something comes up that is not acceptable or there's something to be changed, right? You're still mentioning that, but you're holding that space. There is a feeling of positive regard, but also, like you said so wisely, there are boundaries. But I think you have to have both, right, in combination and balance. When you hold that positive regard, that's how you build that trust early on. Maybe they won't even really let you open up to them or start sharing with you until you show some of that. And then you can start setting those boundaries. Then you can start teaching. Then you can start saying, well, I think there's a better way, or please don't talk to me that way. That's not acceptable. We're not just simply sitting there being the punching bag or taking everything that comes towards us, because that would be really unhealthy and not even very therapeutic or helpful to that person. The way I discovered this concept was early in my career. I was maybe in my late 20s and early 30s, starting to work in community. I was an untrained peer support specialist and non-clinical person working on teams around some pretty serious mental health issues. Sometimes I would hold this positive regard and I would get this feedback from older clinicians or people who were managing these teams that I was being too open or I didn't have good boundaries. The way I learned about this was from somebody who said, actually what you're doing, Jules, is a therapeutic tool because you're able to build this trust and these families and these young people are trusting you. Maybe a young person was really explosively angry. I had that trust to say, hey, that's not working for you. That's not working for anybody. That's going to lead to consequences. What can we do? How can we work together to build things around this? How do we do things differently? Or maybe a parent was doing a lot of yelling and maybe doing more than that, right? I could build that trust over a couple visits, over maybe a week or two, and then I could start saying, hey, would you be curious about learning about different ways to do things? Because I'm worried what will happen if we continue in this way. That positive regard was a way of building that trust in relationship, not being directive, but helping guide that person to thinking about things maybe in a different way. even outside of these therapeutic settings, looking for people in our world that have that positive regard. But also, like you're saying, finding those people who are willing to tell you the truth and not just, oh, everything's fine, everything's just going to be okay no matter what. We need people to tell us the truth, but we're looking for that person who really sees our strengths, honors those strengths.
If you do run into those boundary issues where someone is maybe being a little aggressive towards you, those are openings to potentially explore in dysfunctional households, in places where maybe there's the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences, maybe there's drug abuse, maybe there's mental health issues, maybe a caregiver has narcissism or bipolar and reacts in these strong negative ways. And it's easy for the kids to see that and learn that this is the way you interact with people. But these are openings to potentially say, okay, I get that you're angry at me, but this isn't the way that normal, healthy people have positive relationships. So let's talk about that. It's a rich possibility for openings for potentially learning better ways to do things, better ways to have interactions, because I do think, sadly, there's a lot of people out there who have learned really bad interpersonal skills and they think that it's normal.
How do we incorporate this very heady concept into our everyday lives, right? One concept I really think about is looking for people in your life, maybe your friend, a therapist, a family member. Does this person have this kind of unconditional positive regard for you? Do they see the strengths in you? Even if things aren't always great or you're making mistakes, we all have those parts of ourselves. Having that person who sees those best qualities, even while they're able to give you that feedback, that's who I look for to help me, or people that I tend to trust a little more. If you're going through a hard time, they're looking at you and going, Jules, I see you're going through a hard time, but you've always been this good person in this way.
When past Dave didn't have awareness, didn't do unconditional positive regard very well, not very aware of my own emotions and just had emotional outbursts. As a teenager in middle school, going through puberty, emotions and feelings running hot, I remember a time where I was hanging out with a group of friends and there was an older brother of a friend who was not very socially adept. He was socially awkward. He didn't have his own friend group. He's 2 years older, but he's trying to hang out with us. And he's just annoying. There's a reason why he doesn't have friends. I let that get to me. I remember having this outburst and yelling at him, we don't want you hanging out with us. This story sticks to me to this day for a reason, is because I felt really awful about it. Even then, when I was doing it or right after, I just felt like, oh, that was the wrong thing to do. I didn't really even have the skills to be able to go apologize or take responsibility for it. I'm certainly ashamed by my actions, but it clearly had a huge impact on me. And I learned not to do those kinds of things. But if I had these skills now and someone like that was hanging out and being annoying, I could just take some deep breaths and think, why am I having this strong reaction? What can I do to manage these things? Figure out what's mine and what an appropriate response might be. I might have a request for him. I could just extract myself from the situation. I could have a sidebar conversation with the friend who has the brother and say, hey, what's your take on this? There might be a story there. You just don't know what challenges people are going through. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe he's got some developmental disability that I don't know about. I think it's normal for kids as they grow up and they learn to do these things and to try them out. I have compassion for that younger Dave who didn't learn these things in his family. We didn't have these skills. He was experimenting out there in the real world and learns really quickly that this is not the kind of person he wants to be. Even when you're in these situations where people are being difficult and you might have negative emotional reactions, there's a way for you to turn inward and not make it about yourself. How can I take my ego out of it? And how can I be more compassionate for what is this person going through?
I really like that. I think you took it to a place I didn't even really expect, which is having unconditional positive regard for yourself, right? Your younger self, like my younger self, was still figuring things out. What a powerful concept.
We're born as a blank slate and we got to figure these things out. And we're taught some things, but some things we just have to learn through experience. We got to try it and see how it works. How does that sit with me?
It's important to remember to have that positive regard when people do come to us for support and things are going on, especially if we have a lot going on, right? Or sometimes people bring us topics that are pretty challenging. Maybe it's a little bit outside of what we're used to talking about. It's a little bit beyond our skill set, or maybe it's something that we've never experienced. I do think about this idea of trying to be compassionate and open. What's the feeling or a warmth that I almost feel when I'm like, I don't understand, and that's okay. If it's something that's coming at me, not safe or not safe for them, I have to say something. But if it's just something I don't understand and I'm trying to get there, I think this feeling of positive regard grounds me and helps open the conversation or helps the person feel like I can trust Jules or I can share a little more.
One thing I learned in my training for peer support and crisis counseling and coaching, all of these support roles, is that you have to be in a good state yourself in order to give support to someone else. If there's something bothering me and there's something I'm preoccupied with, or I'm just in this elevated emotional state, there's a good chance that could leak out into that conversation. And I wouldn't be supportive. I might be judgmental. I might snap at them. I might be impatient. So I have to do a lot of work up front with my own therapist or support folks, or even just my own journaling and meditation, take a shower, go for a walk in nature, whatever I need to do. How can I clear the decks of my own issues and be calm? Get my ego out of it, if you will. So it's not about me. When I show up to support them, maybe some things they're talking about could be triggering. They could bring up things that are issues for me, maybe issues I haven't resolved, but I'm trying to minimize that. If I allow those things to suddenly start bringing up emotions and stories and thought patterns about me in my life, then I'm not present for them.
I have had this experience as well in crisis where you get to the point where your bucket's full. I'm going to bring you to someone else to take better care. That's a sense of positive regard. Maybe you're finding a way of putting it out there that this is really important to you. People do this through a lot of different ways, through spiritual ways. Maybe they're talking about God or spirituality somehow. Maybe they're talking about gentleness and kindness being important.
I have absolutely noticed that the more you up-level your relationship skills, the people around you will up-level. It's a natural process by which either they up-level with you or you're like, oh, I don't really like how different we are. And so you stop interacting with them as much. Or maybe it just goes to more superficial level. You back off on the vulnerability with them. When I got divorced and I was starting to date again, one of them, I picked her up from the airport and this was going to be our moment. I'd take her home and I'd spend the night. But I remember getting angry at someone during the pickup. He was cutting me off. I took her home. She's like, oh, I'm really tired. I think I'm just going to go to sleep. That was her way of saying, I didn't appreciate the way you were interacting with that person. You've got anger issues. And only in retrospect did I notice that she was setting a boundary saying, you have to have some certain level of ability to manage your emotions and to interact with others before I'm going to go any further with you.
I'm in a relationship. I have a wife. I'm laughing because that resonated with me, right? To hold a relationship, I have to be more compassionate, be more understanding. It could be in any relationship, though, not just saying it has to be in a male-female relationship. It could be in any kind of relationship, right? That compassion, that seeing the other person, holding them in positive regards.
It's balancing your needs against someone else's. I just need to get into that settled position. I get my basic needs met. I've communicated what I need. And now I can be more open to what do you need? It's an us. It's a collaboration.
And I really heard that in that story that you shared. The woman you were trying to build a relationship with, and then you did something. This has happened to me, I don't know, a lot, especially younger me, where in reflection, I'd be like, oh gosh, that's what happened. Also knowing that sometimes you just can't hold that and it isn't possible. And that's when it's a good time to say, hey, today might not be the day for me to talk about what's going on with you. Could we connect tomorrow or could we connect the next day?
If I don't have that capacity, I'm not the right person to talk to. Maybe we're just not vibing for whatever reason. We're going to find you someone who is. It's called a warm handoff. Contrast that with a cold handoff, which is I'm not the right person. Go find something else and essentially shut the door, right? But a warm handoff, someone is saying, okay, this isn't a good fit, but I am going to make sure that you get to another resource or another person, and be aware that if someone does a warm handoff, they're being very compassionate and caring about you.
And that's that positive regard. I want you to get the help you need. You're not providing all the support, but you're walking with them to the place that they are getting it. So you're an ally, right? You're coming alongside. So I just wanted to share some final thoughts, close this out. This comes from Carl Rogers. He said, when I look at a sunset, I don't find myself saying, soften the orange a bit on that right-hand corner. I don't try to control that sunset. I watch with awe as it unfolds. And I love that quote because in working with people who come to me for help, that's how I see it. Thanks so much. If you want to support us, please share this with others. We'd love to hear from you in the comments if you agree, disagree, have different ways that you do these things. We'd love to hear from people. That would be pretty exciting if you wanted to share with us your ideas around this. Our goal is for everyone in the world to live a happy and healthy life, and that starts with you.
See you next time.